Morning. It's actually quite nice to see so many faces that I've been working with for so many years in our industry. I told Ken that they have to stop picking these terrible locations for us all to travel to. You know, Florida and Park City, Utah. First of all, I hope everybody got their survival kits in their rooms. And when I was driving in last night, I noticed that it was at 1.5 degrees. So hopefully the scarf and the ear warmers will come into use. But when I got here, one of the things I noticed being at a ski resort is people trying to get up the mountain to go skiing. And as you can see here, a little bit represented with a tow rope, but a typical way that you ski would be you wait in a line or a queue, and then you ultimately move through the queue to get to the front of the line, where you get onto, in this case, let's say a gondola. And as you get onto the gondola takes you to the top of the mountain, and of course you ski down, you get back into the line, you worm your way through, and you wait for the next gondola to come along. So that's great if, you know, that's the easiest way for you to do it. But there's some perils aligned with using that type of a system. You know, if you think about it, as you're waiting in line for a gondola, a lot of things could go wrong that are out of your control as you wait. So for example, you know, you could have somebody in front of you fall down, in which they have to then stop the gondola. And when they stop the gondola, nobody behind the queue has an opportunity to then go to the top of the mountain and ski down. Somebody could get onto the gondola quite okay and then have a problem when they're in the gondola. I've seen people on regular ski lifts kind of slip off the chair as they were moving forward. What do you have to do? You have to stop the gondola or the ski lift to allow the people to get back onto the chair and move forward. But everybody that's in line behind them is still unable to go up the mountain as a result of having to stop the ski lift. You could have somebody in the line, the ski lift line, fall down. And if they were to fall down, everybody behind them wouldn't be able to move forward, even if the gondola was continuing to go to the top of the mountain. So there's a lot of issues that are associated with the way a ski lift or a gondola system might be architected. And so if you start thinking about it, there's a very real and very prevalent concept about how architecture matters relative to the construct of the way you're engaging in that ski lift. Now, we would all agree, make sure this works, that there are some distinct advantages to potentially having your own ski lift. You know, you could go right to the front of the line. It would take you right up to the top of the mountain. You'd be able to ski down. You'd be able to get right back onto the lift and go right back up. So you'd have this very quick, repetitive opportunity without any impediment coming from any of the other things that I just described that could happen in a ski lift line. And ultimately, if you're at the resort, if you're at Park City or you're going to go skiing later today, you want to get in as many runs as possible, as quickly as possible, so that you can take advantage of the fact that we're on site here at a venue like this. So obviously, it's a very poorly veiled attempt to talk about the difference between how a multi-tenant email system and a single tenant or a dedicated email instance like we have at StrongMail might operate in reality. And so we believe at StrongMail that architecture matters. So the world is changing for email. I've been doing this, and that's why I know so many of you for so long, since the beginning of email time, which to me goes back to the late 90s and into the early 2000s. And in that period of time, the level of integration and the volumes associated with email and the level of complexity associated with not just the data that you're taking in, but the output and the throughput that's being sent out has changed entirely. I mean, we're now talking with companies at the enterprise level that aren't sending just millions of messages a month or tens of millions of messages a month, but hundreds of millions of messages a month and billions of messages in a calendar year. And with that comes a shift in not only what we all know email to do, which is to be a primary point of generating revenue, but the reality of it is, you'll have to forgive me, I just got these glasses and I see worse with them. The reality of it is that, and I used to say this years ago, that email had evolved from a nice to have to a must have with revenue. But dare I say, in a room of email professionals, even when we look at our metrics against other channels that are now calling for attention inside of your organizations, like social media, display, search, clearly email is still the dominant revenue chain. And so therefore, even if it's got attribution value coming in from other channels, the necessity of it to perform has never been greater. Because ultimately those other channels are contributing to the performance of email as it is to the other channels. But to have an opportunity to not have it execute for you at the level that you need it to execute is very dangerous. So as the systems are being unsiloed and brought together, as multiple data sources are all being sort of needed to engage on that email level, what's happening is there's more and more pressure being put on the architecture and the infrastructure of these systems to be able to support it. And so it becomes an issue about whether or not the architecture that we're using can support something that it may not have been designed to do so many years ago, before the whole idea of all this influx of data came along. Now, I'll tell you as a side note, having done this for many, many, many years, and having been in thousands of sales pitches, there was always this concept that companies would come and they'd say, well, tell us about how you do dynamic content, or tell us how you do this, or how you do segmentation. And then we'd watch the programs, and this was from years ago, and we'd see very little dynamic content, and we'd see very little segmentation taking place. But what has happened is that evolution has started to take place. And more of you in the room are starting to leverage those data points to become more and more efficient in leveraging your email campaigns. And so, of course, that then introduces the concept of big data into the picture. So big data, and we've all heard it, and there's all different types of definitions of how big data works is. But ultimately, it's about being able to leverage all your multi-channel data inputs so that you can be more relevant and more efficient in your deployment of those messages, and more timely and more targeted to your prospects. And ultimately, I was joking at EIS in April with somebody, you know, what we're all here to do is sell product. You know, some of us are selling women's clothing, some of us are selling televisions, some of us are selling travel and entertainment opportunities, but we're here to sell products or services and generate revenue from this channel. And so we need to optimize that channel to be able to engage in that level of revenue and in that level of commerce. So what's happening is, and you all see this, your departments as marketers are getting bigger IT budgets than your IT departments are. And part of the challenge for you is, how do you get your IT departments to treat you internally as a customer with needs, as opposed to driving for you how you should be making those selections? But I think part of our responsibility on the marketing side of the house is ensuring that we are educated on what we're buying. So to me, gone are the days where we should be just looking at the user interface for the buttons and the segmentation capabilities and the reporting data, but understanding what sits behind it. Because when those moments come, when you need to have that dependency on your platform engaging, that is when the rubber is going to meet the road. Because to me, it is ultimately about revenue and being able to have a dependency on that revenue. So think about how you manage data today and all the different sources that are coming in and all the different contributors to it, and how you optimize for that, and how you optimize for what's going to happen not in the next 6 months, not in the next 12 months, but for what's coming down the road, which is going to be higher and higher and higher emphasis on data integration and the ability to leverage that data across your email campaigns from the multi-channel. So, you know, our approach to data has been that we look at it as uncoupling from the concept of a relational structure in the database and allowing the data to sort of operate in a more direct motion. And so our history has been, and as you all probably know, as an on-premises company. So we, for many, many years, specialized in putting our technology on the premises. And what that enabled us to do was learn how to get closer to the data so that we could impact what was going on with CRM systems and other data sources inside the company and leverage that across our UI. Well, over the last several years, StrongMail has made a very big push into what we call our on-demand solution, which is our single-tenant dedicated environment with, frankly, a world-class UI on top of it. Many of the members of our executive management team have come from other ISPs that are represented in this room, and great companies, all of them, and sort of applied some of the lessons on how they put that type of thing in the cloud and leverage that level of data integration so that we can make it work for our clients. And what we're seeing is a higher level of sophisticated messaging, higher level of automation, so that you can be more effective in the types of programs that you want to run and less dependent on the company that you're working with to provide you with tactical account management, tactical support. Because ultimately what we want to do is empower people in the field to do what they do best, which is ultimately leverage the information that they have about their data environments and make it work for them. So, I'm not going to get into a deep review of a case study, even though it's up on the screen, but one of our marquee clients is IHG. They had a big challenge in that they had multiple ESPs, multiple data sources, multiple feed points that they needed to consolidate into a single view so that they could operate more efficiently and ultimately sell more hotel rooms. I keep wanting to tie that back to everybody because for some of you in the room, you have a consumable delivery. So if IHG doesn't sell a hotel room last night, and 6 p.m. is sort of their cutoff time to understand whether they've sold a room or not, that disappears from their inventory forever. They can never resell it. It's very different than maybe having a Samsung flat screen in the inventory. If you didn't sell it on Monday, you have a shot at selling it on Tuesday. So any type of vertical that you have where there's a consumable, the ability to communicate efficiently across multiple data points and quickly was important. So the big takeaway from this is that they were able to take all these multi-channel existing data sources, consolidate them into one view, and then on top of that, really leverage the ability to take dynamic content down to a single template with an unbelievable number of versions and an unbelievable number of data points that are feeding it to really create a very efficient email program. And some of you may get their email and engage with them or even stay at their hotels, but you have a sense of what they're doing. One of the things that we believe in strongly is, as I mentioned earlier, this concept of future-proofing your architecture. So that gets back to what I was talking about a bit earlier, which is that what's coming is going to be very different than what we've been through in our channel. It's going to get more complex. It's going to get more sophisticated. And so as you're looking at architectures and you're considering the direction that you want to take your company, one of the things you might want to consider is the architecture that I'm looking at future-proofed? And what does that mean? How does it handle all of the elements that are going to be contributing to both output and input moving forward? So obviously email, mobile, display, social, those types of things. Apps that might exist out on iTunes. And then where's the data coming from? Is it just email data? Do you have a CRM system in place? Your web analytics, your third-party data that you might be collecting from elsewhere, and any type of social graphing that's going on. And this is really important because the pressure is going to continue to mount. I kind of have this feeling about where social is going. I think social will settle into a supporting, contributing, attributable channel that will not dominate the revenue streams at your companies. I still think, and I know we settled this debate in, I don't know if Dell is in the room, but we settled this debate in April. Email is still viable, right? That's why we're all here. Email is going to continue to have a major impact on everybody's inboxes and the performance that you're going to have. And so to not have a deep understanding of the architecture that you're sitting on, to me, would be a big mistake as the channel evolves. Because your organizations are going to have a bigger dependency on what you're going to be able to deliver for them. And I don't know how many people in this room are at the C level or the SVP level inside of the marketing organizations, but the revenue dependency that's happening for those people to hit their numbers, the people that we all typically help support in our roles, or even ourselves, is just going to become greater and greater and greater as the evolution of our channel continues to move forward. And there's all types of things that are going to have evolutionary impact. It's going to be how quickly can you get into the inbox for somebody. I mean, not just about timestamping, but can you get into the inbox and have an optimal sending window that you own? So Outlook is one of our clients, right? And we've talked to a lot of people, and we have a lot of clients that are taking advantage of what we call burst technology. And basically what we can do is, and in this case, we can deliver 2 million emails in 10 minutes. Targeted emails in 10 minutes. And why is this important? This is important because our architecture can support it. And what we're seeing is that a high level of companies that are delivering into the inbox at a particular moment in time have a high relationship between the revenue they generate from those campaigns when they hit the inbox, right? And how much their email is driving revenue for them. And if they miss that window, you know, there's an opportunity that they're not going to be able to capture that revenue. So let me tell you about something we did. We bought 2 products from one of our clients and the same product from one of our competitors' clients in the same category. And then we watched what was happening on the back end with triggered response, triggered email, things of that nature. And what we saw was that before Company B, which was our competitor's company, had an opportunity to respond and put that transactional message back in our inbox with that upsell, cross-sell piece in it, we'd already been notified by hours by our client of the transaction. The upsell offer was made. The cross-channel sale was made. We bought the second product. And we still hadn't got the confirmation message on the transactional from the first piece. So what that tells me is this. Put the stuff down. There's another thing that's happening. And for all the brands in the room, I think this is an important designation. Consumers are moving away from being brand-centric to you guys. And I don't mean that that is a negative thing. But consumers are product-focused. Look what's happening at Best Buy with how they are closing down retail operations because people are coming in to window shop, and I've done it. I went in there and I actually bought something on my iPhone that they wouldn't price match for me standing right there in the aisle. And what that is that I was more loyal to the product I was buying than to the brand or the company that was trying to sell it to me. So if you miss the opportunity to be that company who sold the product to that consumer, then the risk you run is, am I going to lose the opportunity to upsell and cross-sell them later, or have them open my email in the inbox and engage with me? Or am I going to have to wait until the next product offer comes along that has some viability to what it is that I'm trying to accomplish when I'm in the marketplace? And this is all part of the big data thing, folks. This is the thing that is coming. And it ties back into the dependency on revenue that we have to drive and the structure of your infrastructure to be able to handle this. Because things were built at a certain time with well-intended outcome that may or may not support what the market is driving us towards today. And so with a dedicated platform like we have, scalability, deployment speed, dependability are all there. There's other ancillary benefits. There's things like security. There's things like, you know, when the machines break, and they all break, we all know that, machines break. There was a good chance my laptop was going out the window last night. It wasn't working right. That's like every other day. It might actually be user error at this point. But, and so when these things happen, the ability to react quickly, to be able to move fast and be able to get these things in line is very, very, very important, because who wants to be the person explaining that a number was missed because the technology wasn't able to support what you were doing, or the scalability wasn't there for where you're heading down in the future? And so at our company, you know, we're really passionate about this. It's a this we believe argument, right? In this we believe. Because in the end, that, you know, everybody talks about the fiscal cliff, but that data cliff is coming, and that pressure inside of your organizations are coming, and there's a huge difference between the way everybody is working. It's not just about what you see at the top level on the UI level, it is the architecture. So the last thing I want to just remind you of is, at our company, we have a number of different ways you can work with us. We can go on premises, which means we can take the same UI that you have and that you see in the marketplace and put it behind your firewall, put it right up against your data system and be able to engage. We can go in the cloud. We're working on what, Strong Cloud? Because everything at our company we put the word strong in front of. Even the refrigerator has strong drink on it. We can put you in the cloud and we can manage it, or we can put you in the cloud and you can manage it. And there's a lot of different structures that we have available, all of which are future-proofed against where we're heading. And what we'd rather you do with your costs when you think about the programs that you're running is focus more of your energy on the strategic thinking and the types of data environments that you want to leverage to make your email better, than have it all tangled up in the cost to deploy email. So there's a number of ways that we can approach that. But the big takeaway that I would have today, that if I could just get you to think about this as you look in the future about what you're doing, is we're in the room here with our friends that we compete with, all excellent companies. I have many friends at all of the organizations. I have nothing but respect, but there is a difference under the hood. And I hate car analogies, but they work so well. All cars can get you to point A to point B. For some people, it matters what the engine is. It matters for a lot of reasons. And as we move forward, if you want to drive faster or you want to be able to accelerate quicker, you're going to take a look at what kind of engine you have under the hood. We think the architecture for email systems matters. We think it's an important designation. It's something you should be thinking about as big data comes, because it's coming. And as I said, I think there's an opportunity for all of us to continue to grow our channel and continue to ensure that it is the center point of the revenue piece for digital marketing for years to come. But you have to ask yourself if you're structured to be able to support that. So anyway, I want to thank you. I know you have to sit through something like this. Usually I have to come to your office and do this in front of you, but we appreciate your time. We hope that the next several days here are outstanding for everybody. There's a survey on your tables. If you could complete, that would be terrific, and get back to the MediaPost folks. And I'll be here. I sound like a bad stand-up comedian. I'll be here all week. So. And a number of my colleagues are with me from our executive team, so if you have any opportunity to have a chat with us, that would be great. And as I said, wear those scarves and wear those ear warmers. I think we're going to need them. And I want to thank MediaPost, and I appreciate you letting us kick off the summit.